Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Hammer Factor. My name is John Grace. I'm the Hammer Factor producer. And with no further delay, let's introduce John Weld, co-host, owner of Immersion Research, and whitewater legend. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you.
And also, Lewis Geltman, professional poker player, North Fork champion, and policy counsel for the Outdoor Alliance. Welcome back to the show, Lewis.
Thank you, John. Someday I'll get that poker player item off the bio. But
next time we do this on video, you need to be like shuffling cards in the background, like rolling like a poker chip across your hands or something. Well, we made it to episode 4. That's a pretty big milestone. We have
my career is still intact too, and it's getting dicey.
Yeah, it has been a little dicey on the behind
rocky road.
The behind the scenes have been kind of dicey.
Yes, yes,
we're
indeed.
running out of uncontroversial things to say. We're gonna have to move on to offending people pretty soon.
I think we've already crossed into that territory.
Yes, yeah, we have definitely crossed into that territory, but. Moving on, episode 4, big deal. We're starting to get some viewer comments, which is pretty exciting. We've been looking for that. We'll get into those later in the show. But to keep things rolling, Lewis, start us off with what's going on. What's going on in your world?
Yeah, so I thought maybe we'd talk for a couple of minutes about forest planning, which is super exciting. Everybody can eat their vegetables and talk about public lands policy for a minute before we move on to dessert of talking trash about the green race and professional kayaking and whatnot. So one of the things we do at Outdoor Alliance is we work on forest planning, which is basically every unit in the National Forest System has a forest plan, which they have to revise allegedly every 10 to 15 years. In reality, it's more like every 20 or 25 years. So every national forest has it's like a management plan, but also kind of like a zoning map that sets up things like where there's going to be logging, where there are places that are kind of more prioritized for conservation or for recreation values. And in 2012, the Forest Service changed their regulation for how they create these forest plans. And it's become something that has a lot more public participation opportunities than the old forest planning process. Like under the old rule, the Forest Service would basically develop a plan for a national forest and then put it out for public comment and then kind of accept comments or reject comments and put out the final plan, and that would be it. And under this new rule, there's this whole assessment phase at the beginning of planning where they have to kind of collect public information and share kind of how they're thinking about the forest plan in this like super iterative process with the public basically. And so it creates all these new opportunities for public participation. And so we work really hard to make sure that basically, I mean, as a first step, just make sure that the Forest Service knows the places that people are going on the national forest, why we're going there, what matters about these places. So making sure they're doing things like looking at, for example, like the AW database, like where you go to check your river gauges. Like we want to make sure that the Forest Service is like looking at that and saying, okay, here are a huge list of really important whitewater runs in this national forest. So we want to make sure that we're, cognizant of that, those values when we're setting up a plan for how we're going to manage the national forest, making sure that we're not, clear cutting in places that are really important for recreation, or looking at the places where there are mountain biking trails, and just having that opportunity to get that information into the forest planning process is a big change. And in addition to kind of setting up protections that can last for 15 or 20 years, it's also kind of the headwaters for wilderness designations and wild and scenic river designations. So the Forest Service has to look for streams that are eligible for designation as wild and scenic rivers. And so AW has this opportunity to like share that information with the Forest Service, make sure that they're taking account of these recreation values. And if they find that these are eligible wild and scenic rivers, it creates all these like interim protections until Congress could designate a new wild and scenic river. So, for example, we're doing this out in California right now, on the Inyo, Sierra, and Sequoia National Forests, and the Forest Service has actually done a pretty poor job out there with the wild and scenic rivers inventory. And AW is like really holding these guys' feet to the fire, and it's going to make a huge difference. Like, this is a little bit in the weeds, but the trigger for eligibility under the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act is that a river section has to have at least one outstandingly remarkable value, is kind of the term of art. And they're going out and they're looking at like Dinky Creek, and they're saying, this doesn't have outstandingly remarkable value for recreation, which is like mind blowing, right? Like, Grace, you run Dinky Creek before, right?
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, how can you say that that's not outstandingly remarkable? Through the forest planning process, the Forest Service can say this is an eligible wild and scenic river, and then it kind of presents that menu of eligible rivers to Congress to designate. But in the meantime, that creates some interim protections. So if something is a wild and scenic river, or an eligible wild and scenic river, it's almost like this this mechanism for AW or whoever to kind of fight ill-considered development projects or water development projects. Like, for example, I don't know if you guys saw that there had been a threat to dam the North Fork of the Snoqualmie right above Ernie's. Have you run that one?
I have.
Another just like absolute kind of under the radar Pacific Northwest classic. But that was an eligible wild and scenic river. So when the dam builders are kind of pushing this project, one of the things that AW is able to do is kind of wave this label around and say, hey, the Forest Service has already found that it has this, really remarkable value. Like, this should really be a wild and scenic river, not a lake.
Gotcha. So before 2012 and before this new forest planning process, whitewater boaters really had no say in the wild and scenic designation, did they?
No, I wouldn't say that exactly, but I think that this just creates a bunch of new hooks for public participation. It's a process now that has a whole bunch of different opportunities for public input. Like, another place that Outdoor Alliance is working on forest planning is Nantahala-Pisgah in North Carolina, and working on potentially designating some new national recreation areas out of that process that would protect mountain bike access, particularly.
Yeah. I've been involved with a few of those meetings and talked to some folks about that. It seems like a really good thing for the recreational user. I mean, it seems like this is really the first time that the recreational user, specifically mountain bikers and kayakers, have been able to sit down at the table with like logging interests and other things that go on in national forest.
I mean, is a forest plan typically a blank slate, or do they have certain things they have to do as an institution? Or could anything occur? Is anything on the table in terms of quote unquote forest planning?
So the mandate for the Forest Service is multiple use, which means, yes, that more or less everything is on the table unless there's some perspective, some potential designation that would restrict how an area is managed. Mm-hmm. But I think typically the starting point would be the previous forest plan. So I think that that's one of the things that we have to kind of work to overcome is inertia in the Forest Service, where what they are most inclined to do is just do some tinkering around the edges with the existing forest plan. But the big difference now is that instead of having one opportunity for public input, there's tons of opportunities through the whole plan development process, which is a little bit of a double-edged sword, I think, because we're starting to find that to really be effective in this process, you need to be just consistently involved over the course of, probably 2, 3, 4 years. But to have that, I guess what we're trying to do is to look at these places where we have tons of people who care about these landscapes and kind of give everyone the information they need to be involved in forest planning in their own community and make sure that we're all kind of like standing up for outdoor recreation and conservation values in the development of these forest plans.
So if somebody wants to get involved, where do they go? What do they do? What's their plan of action? I mean, we have a huge listener audience to this show, so.
tens of kayakers are listening, I know. I'd say the first thing is just to get on our mailing list, outdooralliance.org, and when the forest plans in your neck of the woods come up, we'll share those opportunities. I think just kind of checking in with the website for the Forest Service, for the national forest in your area, we care a lot about the Gifford Pinchot, especially out here. I know you guys care a lot about Nantahala Pisgah.
Monongahela's are big.
Monongahela. Is the Blackwater Monongahela? Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure what the timeline is for some of those other forests, but everything that's going to be coming up sometime in the next 10 years. So I think we're working on trying to figure out how to do a better job of sharing these opportunities and engaging people. I think it's a big priority of ours.
Well, this is a little off topic, and we gotta move on to our celebrity guest on today's show. But it seems to me like there has been a much better relationship with land managers and recreational and non-traditional recreational interests. And what I mean by that is hunters and fishermen and logging over the past 10 years, really over the past 6 years, especially around here. Pisgah, like you're talking about in some areas. What do you think the catalyst for that is? Is it just what is it? Different people, different positions? Is this coming from the top? Where's this coming from?
I think it's coming from the top somewhat with the Forest Service. Unlike other public lands are managed by the Department of the Interior, and the Forest Service is in the Department of Agriculture. And the reason for that is the historic mandate for the national forests is to be a timber supply for the country. It's to protect watersheds or to protect water quantity and water quality, and to create a sustainable supply of timber, which is I think a lot of people, I didn't know that for a long time, right? I mean, I think when I first heard that there was logging in national forests, I was like, you got to be kidding me. You let people clear cut public lands? That's insane. But that's actually why the national forest exists in the first place. And so there's this long institutional history with the Forest Service of basically just being a timber management agency and working with the logging companies, and that was all they did. And I think in the 70s, their mandate got changed from timber production to multiple use. And I think more and more in the last 10 years, like you were saying, John, there's been a shift to understanding that what people expect from national forests is recreation opportunities and conservation values more than timber production, or as much as timber production. Yep. And I think there's a lot of institutional inertia against that idea, but I think things are starting to change.
Well, those two can operate hand in hand pretty good. I think there can be some logging going on over there, and people can still ride their bikes over here. And then when they're done, some really nice new trails can be put in. And
for sure. And that's, I think that's what we're trying to do in the forest planning process, is just make sure that when we decide where we're going to log, we're doing that in a way that's just taking account of recreational interests. It's not one over the other. It's just making sure that we're planning these things in a thoughtful way.
OutdoorAlliance.org. Get on the email list. So much stuff is going on behind the scenes with Outdoor Alliance, with American Whitewater, with all of the agencies that you partner with. OutdoorAlliance.org. Get on the email list.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for indulging me on that.
Yeah, dude. Learn something every time, man.
Move on to growing out.
We need a poker tip at the start of every show. When you're holding Jackson 9s, if you're not suited. All right, moving on. So it's green race season, and my good buddy Rush Sturges is coming out. Rush is, let me say this. Rush has always been a sort of a first acceptor with things, and he's a fan of the show. I had no idea, but he was one of the first people to send me a message and I guess he heard, and I don't even remember when this. I had to look back through the podcast, but I guess I called him out for not being able to get top 10 in the green race when he was coming out. Well, he heard, and he decided he wanted to be on the show. And so let's see if we can patch Mr. Rush Sturges 11th place at the green race.
Who's 10th, by the way? Is this you? You being 10th?
If Rush is 11th, I'm definitely going to be 10th. Let's see if we can get Rush in here.
Morning, what's happening?
Hey.
You guys got that?
What's up there, bud?
You guys hear me?
All right, we got you. All right, welcome to the show, Rush Sturges, professional rapper, kayaker, and film producer. And I'm not sure what else you'd like me to add to the accolades. How you doing, Rush?
Doing good, man. Yeah, want to be rapper for sure, but working on it.
Well, that's what it takes. So, Rush, I was just talking to John and Lewis that you're one of our loyal, 34 loyal listeners to the show. So,
oh, cool. Nice. Hell yeah, man.
Huge thanks for that. And it's great to have you on the show. And I was telling them that I didn't even remember saying it, but somewhere through one of my ramblings, I was saying you wouldn't make top 10. And then you reached out to me saying, hey, I want to be on the show. I'm coming out to the green race this year. And here you are. So what's going on? When you coming out? What's up in Rush's world?
Yeah, man, I'm coming to war, dude. I'm coming for all y'all. No, man. Yeah. I listened to last week's podcast, and I just think it's cool, man. We were on the way to the river yesterday and or at the takeout, and some Portland paddlers who had listened in were like, yeah, it's like the sports center for kayaking, or something like that. So I think that's kind of cool,
Well, maybe one day it will be. Right now, we're just trying to get the technical glitches out.
Yeah.
Nice. So, Rush, I know what you have put together here for the show, but let's just get right into this little piece you put together about coming to the green race and being on the Hammer Factor.
All right, cool, man. We'll do it. We'll do it here for you.
All right, what's up? It's Rush Sturges, also known as Adrenaline Rush, the one and only whitewater rapper, here on Hammer Factor. John Grace says I can't make top 10 at green race. But man, you living in a dream state. But let's be honest, all you locals have a clear advantage, cause I don't train on manky rivers, all my flows are classic. I tried to be cool, but now it's too late. Your course record's held by a Kiwi, right? Oh, that's cute, mate. It's okay, man, I just came to observe. The other day, Jason Hale's like, man, I need help with my skirt. IR tight, but y'all beaters ain't on top of it. Probably at the pudding like, you mind if we follow ya? I'm stomping this, but never sell my soul like Confluence. And every other company we lost to the conglomerate. On top of it, my vocab's straight staggering. Long before Pat and I stabbed a dagger and dagger, we were some little nappy paddlers, smashing it passionate. And while we rage in Cascades, you straight meandering. Every day, take them to church like the Vatican, that's accurate. Peace to EG and all my West Coast savage cats. Hammer Factor rap, smash your whackness into smithereens, cause while you update statuses, I'm on the river living dreams. And if the Southeast is so jam magic, why is everybody moving out to White Salmon? Catch you with everybody's hiding out from all the flooding, cause the LW5, we gon' find you in the Columbia. I'm back at it, swifter than Green River narrows. Quick-witted rap spit sharp like Cherokee arrows. Part werewolf, part pharaoh. Ladies wanna get to know me, but I got the heart of a scarecrow nonetheless. My cardio way gnarlier, working on my training just to come out there and slaughter you. It's child's play, like John Grace in Twins World. I win world while all you kids be slipping like big girls. I'm way too innovative and creative, that's factual. Basically gorilla, Sarah Soul, supernatural. Good morning sunshine, I illuminate like floodlights. Still living unsigned, cause rhyming just a fun time. It's true, I love to rap, man, who knew? I hope EJ don't kick me off the team for being too cool. And while I'm steady gaining traction, y'all can hate up on the Jacksons, but the fact is you just hating cause they constantly be smashing ya. That's real talk, bring your flow to a standstill. I kill the pain like Advil and always got mad skills. That type of love that you can't get from a capsule. And nothing but respect for my peeps from Asheville. But as for you, Grace, I think you hit your expiration date. You used to hit 6 rivers, now you're weekend chillin', hitting lakes. Make no mistake, I know the green's a classic. I'll see you next week, probably get my ass kicked. It's whitewater rap, Hammer Factor back at ya.
Yes. First of all, dude, that may be the best thing to ever come out of Adrenaline Rush Studios. So, Big props, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's funny actually. I just started writing it, man. And I was just gonna do like a real short one, and then it just kind of kept coming, so I just kept going with it.
So much to say.
Oh, so much to say. Well, before I let Weld and Lewis comment on the little piece there, I gotta say, Rush, you're never one to you're not scared to stir the pot, bud.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully people see it for what it is, which is a satire in a sense, but always there's a little bit of truth rooted in all comedy, I suppose, right?
I think there's a lot of truth in there.
All right, Weld. All right, Lewis. What do you think?
All right, first of all, let's. I think we should get a bet going between Grace and Mr. Sturges here. Something along the lines of maybe something happened in Brazil a few years ago.
Oh no, we're not.
Maybe not that
extreme.
Maybe not that extreme.
Well, I mean, there was a bet that happened,
and we should handicap. Grace. We should give Grace a bit of a handicap.
Yeah, let's start with that. How many? All right, Rush. So head to head, how many seconds do I get per kid if we were going to place a bet on the race?
Man, honestly, I don't think that I'm going to be able to take you, man. That's your course, dude. I don't know it out there. I'm coming in just I'm not a contender. I'm coming out there just to have fun, and I'd be stoked on 10th, but I'll be stoked just to race.
Yeah, you're not going to get out of it that easy. So
I think if Grace beats you, you should maybe write a check back to Jackson. Some kind of rebate of some sort.
You're gonna have to give those guys a full refund, dude. Oh man. Well, we'll figure out the terms of the bet. It's not going to involve a Brazilian. I'll tell you that. I don't want to get into that on the air.
I mean,
you guys don't want to tell the story?
I don't want to tell that. I mean,
there's a lot of people out there. I'm sure his interest has been piqued.
All I'll do is you'll have to ask in person for that story, but I will tell you that it wasn't too bad for Jason and I, but Rush, you had a little bit of an epic coming out of that one, didn't you?
Yeah, we're gonna have to tell it, dude. I mean, because I think that it's important that people know that I'm obviously this is kind of like a John Grace diss track, but we've been having this kind of back and forth banter for many years, so it's a friendly deal. And it all kind of started, I think, in Brazil. I was I think 20 years old at the time, and we had a heavy hitting crew down there. We had like Holcomb, Keller, Poke Dieters, like a lot of people. And you and Jason Hale and I had kind of had this like back and forth the whole time. It was kind of like the young guns versus the old guys or whatever, even though you guys were really not that old probably. But anyway, it was like this back and forth deal the whole trip, just trying to outdo each other on all sorts of things. And basically we were all like, you guys kind of like, talked me into doing this Brazilian, basically getting a full body wax. And, I wasn't about to back out of it because I didn't want to be like, I was scared, to be honest. And I'm not exaggerating. Like we went in there and we went into this place and you went first, and Hale and I remember were like in the waiting room, and like, I mean, literally like you were screaming like a little girl, like just like,
dude, it was horrible.
It was
horrible. Dude. It was horrible. The only thing that made it okay was knowing that you guys were up next.
Yeah. And then Hale goes in and it's like the same thing. I mean, even worse, man. He was just like, I was scared, man. I was scared. I went in there and the woman is just like shaking her head, dude. And she's like, you have 3 times as much hair as those guys do. And I'm like, oh no, dude. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. At one point, she was like pulling so hard, she had to like, and she wasn't getting it, like one try, second try, she like wipes the sweat off her eyebrow and just like, I was just like, oh god. But the worst part of the whole story is that like my idea was that I was gonna like impress my girlfriend at the time, and women probably know this a lot better than us guys, but like you have to like treat the wounds afterwards. You got to put like lotion on there or like do something. I didn't do anything. I just went like surfing, got all dirty, and so long story short, I'm like my entire under region was like savagely infected. Like I just had like these red freaking like pus dots like everywhere, dude. Like I could barely even sit down on the plane, man. It was the most uncomfortable thing maybe I've ever experienced.
Didn't you?
Right up there, top 5.
Didn't you get home and your girlfriend was having to apply like bandages to you, like treat your wounds?
Dude, yeah, she like taking photos of it, dude, because it was so gnarly, man. Like, seriously.
I think the moral is to keep Grace at arm's length. I think that's the takeaway from the story.
Yeah, I think so. I learned my lesson on that one. So, but apparently I didn't, because I'm just calling him out hardcore right now. So
yeah, getting graced manifests itself in many ways, and that's just one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we'll figure out our bet. I'm saying that 7 seconds per kid. So you give me a 20-second handicap, and we'll call it good.
All right, let's do a 20-second. That's a lot, though, man. I mean,
all right.
Okay.
All right. So what happens? What happens to the loser?
I say the loser has to dye their hair whatever color the winner wants and keep it that way for 1 month.
Oh, that's cool, dude. I'm down with that for sure.
You know, I mean, I used to do cash, and then nobody'd ever pay me, so I figure it's way better to.
Although I'm going to Rafa's wedding right after that, and I'm in that wedding. That might be a little rough.
Yeah. Well, when would the dyeing occur? Like the night of the race?
Yeah, basically we'll have the awards party, and we'll have 500 or 600 people there. We'll do it up on stage.
Okay. All right. That sounds fair enough.
And you can do it after the wedding if you want. I'll give you that prop. You know, I don't want to. You know, I mean, it could be a good story for the wedding.
Yeah, it could be a good story for the wedding. Yeah, I'm down. I don't care. I don't mind having my hair dyed something stupid.
All right, 20 seconds it is.
20 seconds race on the green. It's like hubris to me, man. I don't know if the winner's going to be Grace by 20 seconds.
I know. I probably should have looked at times here, huh?
Yeah, I would have done some research on that one before.
I would have argued for like 2 seconds a kid.
I think you just got graced again, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, I guess that's like one thing on the little white when it's like a 15-minute course, but yeah, I really wasn't thinking.
This is like a 2-minute course.
What is 4.5 minutes? Is the fastest is like 4:15 or something?
4:10.
Top places 1 through 50 are about a half a second apart, I think.
Oh man, all it takes is catching an eddy, and 20 seconds happens really fast.
Yeah.
All right, listen, I need to call you out on something though about the rap.
Oh yeah.
So I listened ahead of time, and one thing stuck out.
Okay.
You imply Jackson is not a conglomerate. Now I'm going to throw out some names: Jackson trash cans, Jackson fishing kayaks, Jackson coolers, Jackson road barriers. I think there's a Jackson Brazilian powdered milk division. I think they're working on like a steel recycling unit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a fair assessment. I mean, what I will say, man, is from the kayaking perspective, you know, Jackson is, especially, you know, and I feel kind of bad for calling out Dagger the way I did, because Dagger did so much good for me for so many years, and I really love a lot of people there, and it's a great company in many respects. But the difference is, it's just amazing to be able to call up Emily, call up EJ, you know, like have a personal relationship with a company where it is basically family owned, really, you know, especially the kayaking component. There's not like that level of like bureaucracy that you kind of have with some of these other, and I mean, especially comparing it to a company like Confluence, you know, which is a much larger conglomerate in my opinion. But you know, I don't know. It's just, I guess I feel like it's that personal relationship that I really enjoy with Jackson, and it feels more like a family kind of, you know, run deal.
Well, let me ask you a question, because it brings up a good point. Is it possible to have a standalone whitewater boat company? I know Eric certainly started out with that in mind. I mean, that was the drum he was beating for many years at the start of Jackson. But like all companies, Dagger, Wavesport, Piranha, everybody, that sooner or later they have to get Liquid Logic. They have to get wrapped up to a larger company to keep moving. Is that a truth? And is Tuna, for instance, are they a sustainable company, or are they going to follow the wayside of everyone else to try to just do it as a standalone brand, a whitewater brand?
I'm honestly not sure. You know, I think that they kind of start off that way, you know, and then as a company grows, it starts to sort of, I guess, see the dollar signs a little bit and see the potential, to do other stuff, and it just kind of naturally grows that way. But yeah, it seems like Waka is like doing pretty good, and those guys are like sustaining. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be like, they're going to be like these massive companies just solely off of kayaking, but I think that they're sustaining for sure,
I don't know. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. It's always fun to see. Sit back and enjoy the show.
From what I can gather, I don't think it's, well, at least selling under current business model, I don't know that you could do a standalone whitewater boat company. I don't know there's enough participation in the sport to drive the R&D and the tooling and everything else necessary to make that work.
But you're a standalone gear company pretty much, right?
Yeah, I think we're the last one.
The last one, yeah.
Doing nothing but whitewater. I can't think of another brand that does nothing but whitewater.
Right, yeah.
But we don't have tooling costs. You know what I mean? I'm not looking at $50,000 in tooling costs every time I make a dry suit. I mean, honestly, it's close, but it's not quite that.
Yeah. Well, congrats on that, man. Good on you for staying the course. You guys have been at it for a long time.
Forever. I think we started in the 30s, 1936. Is that right?
Coming out of the last Great Depression.
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Well,
tuna. What's going on? I mean, right now tuna has one boat. I mean, that I've seen. I mean, I know they have some more in the pipeline. Are they going to sell direct, or are they going to sell to retailers? I mean, how are they going to make that work?
They've got like three new boats right now.
Yeah, we'll have to get EG on the show, and we'll have to get or Sam Sutton or somebody else to talk about that. But I will say that to be a standalone company, you're going to have to streamline your distribution. I'm not sure that you can advance designs and do everything that you need to do and have a complete line and do it the way it's traditionally done without getting into too much detail there. That's just my 2 cents, but I don't own a kayak company, so.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Speaking of kayak companies, cash and checks all the way to the bank rush from Jackson. You're you're a pro kayaker. Let's get into that. What's it mean to be a pro kayaker nowadays? What's for someone who's on the outside looking in, what's it all about?
It means you get that money, man. Yeah. Well, this is like an interesting topic, I think, because I feel like there is, it's a tricky one to define. Lewis and I were actually talking about it yesterday, what is actually a pro kayaker, because I look at it from the perspective of like, there's a lot of like, in my opinion, kind of like guys out there that are sort of like unsung heroes, that are, you've got like someone like Lewis, who's actually like a lawyer as well, but still gets on the river all the time. Lane Jacobs, who's a nurse, gets on the river all the time. Well, maybe not, unless it's like super high water. He doesn't get on the river as much, but, James Bird, these guys that are amazing kayakers, and not necessarily like professional in the sense that they make a living off of paddling, but they have other professions that they do to enable them to kind of, paddle all the time. So in that sense, we're all kind of like expert kayakers. I guess the difference with me is that, I have managed to make a living and sort of build all of this off of kayaking, but in addition to that, I've sort of had to do other stuff along the way in terms of video and production. So I think when you look at the bigger picture, there's very few so-called professional kayakers out there making a living, just off of kayaking alone. I mean, even someone like Dane Jackson, who is, probably one of the few just kind of full-time kayakers in the world, he's still out there making videos, taking photos, making content. These days kind of means doing a lot more than just that. And I think it's really important also to do other stuff besides just paddle, because it sort of, builds up something for the future. Because like this wave, you can't ride it forever. Exactly.
Yeah.
It seems like more so than other sports in kayaking, you kind of have to go to work for the company that's sponsoring you. It's not just a matter of kayaking. Like you look at Fuseli, for instance. I mean, he's a full-time kayaker, but he's basically working for Piranha. He's doing demo days. He's going to sea kayaking events. He's going to retailers.
Totally.
It's not what you typically think of in terms of a sponsored extreme athlete.
Yeah, what's like interesting too is like we go to these being on like the GoPro team is really cool because we get to go to all these big athlete convention type things where they bring all the GoPro athletes from around the world, and they'll bring like 120 of like the world's kind of top, extreme athletes from all these different sports, from skating, snowboarding, base, whatever, and they put you all together and you do like these workshops. And the interesting thing about the kayakers is that the kayakers are like the one group in that entire spectrum that are really like editing their own videos, their own content,
right?
Their own thing.
They're like darning their socks.
Yeah, so that's like such an opportunity, and it's just such a hard sport to really like make it in. It's just not easy. Like you really, really have to be, I feel like, either like, I mean, that's the other thing too. Like you don't have to be the gnarliest, like most standout paddler anymore. Like you can just be an awesome content creator. You can be a really great filmmaker. You can be a great writer, a photographer, or whatever. But like those are the avenues we have to all pursue in this sport. Because it's just like next to impossible to kind of make it as just a so-called pro.
Yeah,
I think you have to add you also to paddle Jackson boat. I think
Exactly. A paddle Jackson.
I don't know if there's any other way to make a go of it.
There's no other boats that are as good, so I mean, it's like.
Well, until and the thing is, I don't see that changing anytime in the future. I mean, there's no teams to sign a contract with. It's not like if you're a factory rider for a Trek or a Giant or something like that, you're on a team salary right there that you can make a living with. There's not 2 competitions a month where there's $20,000 in prize money each competition that an athlete can focus on to bring in revenue. There's just not this infrastructure there to create a true pro athlete.
Because there's no kayaking lifestyle to sell. It's not like 25 million young Americans are looking to emulate the kayaking lifestyle. I mean,
no, but like
hanging out in rhododendron bushes in the pouring rain. That's just not part of the American dream.
I agree to some extent, but also I think when the cool kind of thing about nowadays, or it's a negative too, you can look at it in 2 ways, but with social media being a part of it, you've kind of got this platform where you can actually prove your value to a sponsor, where you can say like, hey, my video with your logo got, 2 million views on it or whatever. And I mean, like that kind of talk, like that is like, that's money for sure. And that, if you can figure out how to monetize that, you can definitely make a real living off of it. It's just a little more challenging than other sports where there are competitions with cash prizes and things like that. But I personally am optimistic, and I think that that we are going to see a platform in kayaking where it gets easier for athletes to live as kind of professionals off this as the sport continues to grow and as it becomes more accessible to people. I think that's the biggest part. More whitewater parks, more accessibility. That's the main thing.
Well, I'd certainly love to see it. I think it's I've been doing some work with some guys in the mountain biking realm, and it's just really interesting, the infrastructure that they have going on. And it would be great. I'd love to see it if you didn't have a boat sponsor, if you bought all your own gear and you trained your tail off and you went to a series of competitions, and at the end of the year you could have 40 grand in the bank. You know what I mean?
Well, John Grace, let me ask you a question, right? So, at IR we get a fair number of sponsorship requests, and you get the usual round of people who just write a form letter to you, but then you get some people who are really working it. You know what I mean? They're out there really putting in the hours, and they'll submit a video that's a really great quality video, and they've already got 15,000 people who've seen it. And it's a potentially huge promotional tool for your brand. Now you're in video production. What do you say to someone like me who's you're trying to sell them a video, and I could say, well, geez, I have 3 or 4 athletes who are actually on their own doing great work. And what's your response to that?
Well, you've got to what you've got to do is I
should point. I mean, for people who don't know, you do. I mean, your job is video production.
Yeah. And well, it's video production, but it's also, we've turned into a content marketing, like content strategies, and what you've got to do is, it's great to have 1 video or 2 videos, but you've got to get your audience to know, like, and trust you. And if you can show that that you can put an opinion out there, that you can show something performing and show it work and get people to actually sit in it and use it, and you can show that to a company who's interested in selling their product. If they don't jump on that, then it's their bad business. You're giving them a good opportunity, you know, and like you say, you gotta let them make that decision. That's not up to the athlete. But if you can make that connection, you can have your audience and show a connection to them, you know, to you exposing them to products or in my business, sometimes it could be a service. But if you can show that, you know, for instance, in this conversation, whitewater, that they grab that paddle or they grab that boat, and then that is a big opportunity for companies, and there is value there. So you have to make that connection. You can't. The biggest thing that I see a lot of people do is connect. If let's say you're 17 years old and you're trying to work your way up through the ranks, you've got to do something more than just say I have a certain amount of views. You've got to show an established connection between those views and somebody taking action. And if you can do that, then it is of value. But if you're just talking about numbers, well, there's a lot of ways to get numbers. Does that resonate with you, Rush?
Yeah, I was going to say engagement. That's like the key word these days. And what a lot of companies are looking at is not necessarily views, but just like your interactions with people. And that's also can all be sort of followed, you know, with stats on social media and stuff. You know, are you like responding to people, connecting with them, especially in kayaking, because it is such a sort of smaller sport. You know, it's I mean, I make an effort to get back to everybody that messages me if I can, you know, and that's just something that takes a little time out of my day. But I think that's like pretty important for sure.
And dude, being on this show, I mean, your stock's going up.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, for sure.
Anyway, hey, it's interesting. You're doing I mean, that's one of the best raps I've ever heard you put together, man. I'm a huge Rush Sturges fan, so just putting that together.
Hey, well, I got a new album out now. You know, I don't know if you've copped that yet, but it's out on iTunes. You know,
Let's hear about that. Let's hear what it is. Plug it right now.
Oh, it's just it's my first full length album that I put together. So it's I've been working on it for a few years and finally got it together to put it out there to the world. So man, it was a good learning experience for sure. I learned a lot in that process, and it's like putting together a movie. You know, it's kind of like you got some ebb and flow to it. I've probably recorded over 30 plus songs over the years, but this was my first time kind of consolidating my best like current material down to like a 12-track LP. So yeah, it's been doing pretty good, and people been pretty supportive. So it's been fun.
What's it called, and where do we get it?
You can just search for it on iTunes. It's under my name, just Rush Sturges. It's called A Life Worth Living. And I got a couple of the songs that are in Chasing Niagara, and then a couple other videos as well, For the Love and some stuff like that. So
sick.
Yeah.
Well, moving on, we kind of are close to our time allotment for the day. We're going to do we always end with a rants and raves here on the show, and I haven't done a rant or a rave in a while, so I'm going to jump in. I'm going to do a rant. And I don't know if you guys, I think we lost Weld. I don't know where he went. He's in West Virginia, man. They're just figuring out the internet up there. But are you up for doing a rave, Rush?
Oh, I had a rant, but I could totally do a rave too.
Well, you know what? We'll do two rants. I got to get this rant out because it was all over the place. So this weekend I went out and I went trail running one day, and then I went mountain biking the next day. And it was a beautiful fall day. There were a lot of people out on the trails, which is awesome. But people with cologne and perfume out on the trail, out in the woods, is the most out-of-place thing. It's worse than somebody out there with like a bunch of loud music or banging drums or throwing litter on the side of the trail. It was like this... And it works in like an indoor environment, but out there it was like, I don't know how to explain it. It was like a really invasive pollution. So
Toxic.
Yeah, it was toxic, man. I was just trying to be out in the outdoors, and I've just got all of these just dirty smells just coming at me from all these different groups, guys and girls, you know, and it was just like people need to check. They need to just wipe that stuff off before they go out in the woods. That's it. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave it right there.
Or on the river, dude. I know, like Benny Mar is always rocking perfume, dude. It's good. Speaking of which, I've actually got Benny and Tyler here at the church at the moment. We're about to go paddle, but my rant was going to be about gypsies.
Gypsies, couch surfers.
Couch surfers, get it together. You know, I mean, really, like it is. You know, honestly, it's pretty funny because I've got this. They jokingly call my church here the Church of Open Arms, which is the River Roots headquarters, which it is kind of sometimes. But I'm all about having guests. You know, I like to have guests, and it's nice. And there's definitely like certain people who are more than welcome here always. But you know, the kayaker lifestyle. It's like it's my rant is the people that rock around with like just absolutely no plan ever. You know, off to town, and they're like, you know, and they might even be like the type of person who's like, you know, like at the put-in is like doesn't know the river, doesn't have anyone to paddle with, and it's like I got a lot of compassion for those people too. Like I'm all about showing people around and, you know, helping them down, whatever. But you know, you gotta rock in with a little bit of a game plan, you know, and just like show up and be like, hey man, like can I stay here for like 2 months?
Yeah, we've termed that recently a jangler.
A jangler, okay, yeah.
So
I mean, I've done my share of jangling and gypsying, so it's like, you know, it's I can't hate on it too hard, but you know, just look into things a little bit, you know, before you kind of just show up and expect to stay.
Well, amen. I don't know. I think that about wraps up Hammer Factor episode 4. Huge props and thanks to Rush Sturges for taking the time out of his busy day. Where are you going paddling?
We're going to do upper trout into the wind, which should be pretty nice and juicy in there.
What's we're hang on a second. I think we're patching Weld back in. His West Virginia kind of took him for a loop.
All right,
Are you there, Rush? Yeah. We lost Rush. Well, there goes.
Wasn't me.
That was you, dude. That was fully you. Lewis, is Lewis even here?
I'm here now. I accidentally clicked on Weld. Oh, there I am. I clicked on Weld. I thought I was adding him back in, and I just...
Anyway.
I apologize for the state.
Anyways, I think that concludes our show. You missed the whole closing with Rush. It was.
I did.
It was great having Rush on the show. But anyway, John, since you're back on internet service, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No. What did Rush say? I'll catch you later on that.
Rush basically said it was awesome being on the show, and he wants to come back, and he is a huge Lewis Geltman fan and really loves you.
All right.
I don't know. Listen to the show. All right. Let's wrap.
Was complaining about their leaky IR dryware.
Oh yeah.
And his
skirt, he used to pile on that one.
And his skirt that blows and his fleece that ripped. No, actually, I did a rant on people with perfume and cologne out in the woods, and he ranted on gypsy kayakers who just lurk and sleep on your couch forever with no apparent plan.
Right. So. That's a good one.
All right. Until next week when we're not ending because we're going to take a viewer call.
Oh.
We're going to jump into something here real quick.
Okay.
And this is because we love our viewers. Well, you need to get an athlete page together on Facebook.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I don't know.
John Weld, public figure. That's going to be my rant, is like 15-year-old kids asking me to like their Facebook athlete page.
God, I'm glad at least of the co-hosts, I'm a nice guy. Well, I did have a comment come through saying that you need to be nicer.
Me?
Yeah.
To who?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Ignore that, Weld.
Nicer to who? I'm so nice.
Man, you're not that nice.
I have the perfect temperament for a podcast.
Winning temperament, John.
Okay.
Mr. Grace, however, does
Hey,
not have.
I'm keeping it between the lines here. Come on, give me some credit. All right, so this comes into us from Jeff Joyce. This is totally off topic, but we'll give this 3 minutes. Jeff says, as a desk jockey that is confined to a specific place for a set time from Monday to Friday, I'm always interested in new ways to bring adventure to the backyard. I've really been inspired by some of the massive dual sport linkups that have been going on in the Asheville area. Big tours of drainages from source to sea. I'd love to hear more about creating an adventure in your backyard, planning these expeditions, and since you often have people from across the country in the podcast, I'd like to hear what other people are doing in similar vein across the U.S. Anything to inspire. So I'm going to throw this to Lewis. How do you keep it spicy out there?
I'm far from being the king of this, but there are a couple of guys out here who really kill it on the multi-sport link-ups. That's Swollen in particular I'm thinking of, who we all kind of pioneered this concept together, but he really took off with it, and it's called Summit to Stout. And so what we try and do is go climb something and then paddle, whatever we think is the best river in the drainage. So kind of the most classic one out here is there's a multi-sport kind of ultra informal race here every summer that starts at the top of Mount Adams, which is 12,000 feet, snow all year round. So meet at 9 a.m. at the top of Mount Adams, which usually involves camping halfway up and finishing the climb in the morning. Ski Adams, mountain bike. It's probably 4 miles of single track, and you hit logging roads, and then you can pop out at the top of the White Salmon and then paddle the entire White Salmon, like Farmlands Truss, middle, lower, across the Columbia all the way to Hood River. So you get climb, ski, class 5 paddle all the way to the gorge. It's about 6 hours down from the summit. Just like such a fun day.
Have you done that?
I've done that.
Sick.
I know Seth has climbed Mount Hood, ridden the Timberline Trail down to the bottom of Salmon River Gorge, hiked up the top of Salmon River Gorge and run that. That's another kind of classic run out here. I know you first did that huge falls on there, eh, Grace?
No, someone else had ran that before. Oh, you talking about on the Ohanabacosh?
No, on Salmon River Gorge.
I first
there's
did
that like
Silver.
75-footer.
No, somebody had ran that before me. I was the second person to run it, but one other person had ran it. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, that job is gnarly, man. But still, super cool link up. What else? I mean, there's just stuff like that all over the Northwest with the glaciated peaks and the volcanoes that you can ski around out here. There's like a ton of opportunity to do really cool link ups like that. And just like the feeling at the end of the day after just crushing it for 8, 10, 12 hours, whatever. Oh, another really good one that Seth did was he climbed something in the Clark's Fork of the Yellowstone drainage and then put on by himself, ran Sticks and Stones, and then met up with some other guys and did the box.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is a really good one. For me, it's like, if you just getting, when you're in your kayak and you're down in the actual canyon, that's a really interesting perspective. But to have the same perspective in a day of being on the top of the peak or where that water actually starts, where the watershed actually kicks off is, I don't know. There's just something really cool about mastering that whole, or playing on that whole field per se. That I mean, it's not really a field, but that just feeling that from the bottom to the top.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say to the guy who wrote that letter, and it's like, just go with your imagination. It's like, if you can dream it up, you can do it. It's always worth it.
Yep. Look at your map, get out there, and tell people about it so somebody else can do it later. All right, man. Well, we'll catch you next week, Lewis, and I appreciate the time. We've lost well. Dude, it's West Virginia, man. What can you expect?
I'm here.
Oh, are you there?
I'm here. I'm listening.
Well, chime in, buddy. What do you got to say?
Oh, I don't. It reminds me of stuff we used to do to prepare for expeditions, where we would, we're on the East Coast, so we don't have, the 16,000 feet of vertical to descend in a day. But we'd be like, well, we're gonna simulate an expedition type environment. We're gonna have to hike your boat over a long distance to get to the put in. So we try and find like a section of the Dry Fork or something, or not Dry Fork, like a Shaver's Fork that would be, otherwise really hard to get to, and hike into it and paddle out. So
I don't know.
not sure if it's much of an insight.
For me, from a selfish standpoint, and this happens. I think this kind of just happens when you get older, but especially happens when you have kids, is that you realize how important your time is, and if you have a little bit of time, what you're going to do with it. So, for instance, when I make a trip to the green now, I'm like, okay, it's going to be 4 hours round trip. And if I go to the bottom, hang out with people in the parking lot, get in the cars, run shuttle, set shuttle, paddle the river, go in, unset shuttle, drive home. I've kayaked for an hour, but I've been 3 hours of driving around in the car.
Yeah.
And so what I've just figured out is, all right, I got this 4 hour window. What can I pack into it? So that's kind of been my catalyst for, just figuring out ways to like human power my shuttle or get in a run or get in a bike ride or something, is that I've got this period of time, and I'm like, all right, how can I maximize it? Because as soon as I get home, it's game on, so, you got to make it work. You got to keep the train rolling however you can do it.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite thing with the Summit to Stout ones, is just to try to figure out a way to do it without getting in a car.
Yeah.
Like, just set your whole day as much as you can to avoid driving. I think that really just keeps it.
Well, we just hit 1 hour, fellas. Episode 4 in the books.
Best podcast ever.
We're huge.
Pretty strong.
We're bigger than...
We had a wrap.
We've arrived. Somebody's written a rap about our podcast.
That's a high bar to set for the next one. It's going to be downhill from here, folks.
It is. But, man, come on. That was pretty good. You got to give Rush big time credit for that. That was pretty
Absolutely. I was expecting sort of awkwardness, but it was really quite funny and good.
good. All right, guys. Until next week.
All right.
Sick. See you guys.